Hi guys, welcome back. Today is the final lesson on this series on markets and market failure, and today's lesson will be focusing on government failure. So let's take a quick overview of what we have covered so far in this series on markets and market failure. Firstly, we saw how the free market operates with the supply and demand curve, and when these two curves intersect, we reach the free market equilibrium. We looked at the gradient of these curves in terms of their elasticities and the market structure of a monopoly. And when the free market fails, we saw this in terms of externalities, the allocation of public goods, and the distribution of wealth and income. The government can then try to intervene and correct this market failure by introducing minimum or maximum prices or even pollution permits. It's important to remember that they can fail in their intervention and may create more market distortions. So let's take a closer look at how the government may fail in its intervention. The intervention may be successful in reducing market inefficiencies and correcting market failure, but what if intervention led to further market inefficiencies or intervention is costly and ineffective? When the costs outweigh the benefits to society, this is when the government has failed in its intervention. The failure also contributes to an increase in allocative inefficiency. This refers to the optimal distribution of goods and services in society and is usually when price is equal to marginal cost. The first form of failure is if there is a political self-interest. For example, if there are upcoming elections, politicians may choose to allocate certain resources in areas which will gain them the most favorable votes. Another similar point is called policy myopia, when politicians, due to political agendas, have the tendency to put in place short-term fixes, which may not help address the long-term problem. Information failure is also a key point because it's impossible for any government to have full information on market conditions. For example, when coming up with a value for the negative externality, if they are not able to reach this figure as accurately as possible, then the policy that they have put in place to address the externality may not be the most effective. The next failure is called regulatory capture. This is when the government regulate a certain industry, such as one which may be monopolistic, and try to increase efficiency and keep prices low for consumers. But if that regulatory body is operating in the interest of the industry CEOs, maybe the managers are able to influence the regulators to make more lenient regulations. This clearly shows government failure, as the regulation put in place is operating in favour of the producers and not the consumers. We also have disincentive effects. Here in the UK, we have a progressive tax system, so this means as your earnings or wages increase, so does the level of tax that you pay. Wealth and income inequality is one of the market failures we previously discussed. Now, if the rate of tax for higher earners increased, it can be argued that this reduces the incentive for people to go for these higher paying jobs. Next, we have the law of unintended consequences. So as a result of the intervention, there are some knock-on effects to society which were unanticipated. For example, an increase in tax on demerit goods, such as alcohol and cigarettes, may increase tax evasion, or there may be an appearance of a black market in which trade takes place without paying the tax. Furthermore, overregulation or an increase in tax in a particular industry may mean certain firms are unable to operate and have to close down as a result. There is a further knock-on effect, as this may also increase the rate of unemployment. Finally, a really important point would be the cost of enforcement and intervention. If the cost outweighs the social benefit, then the government again has failed in its intervention. Let's summarise. Firstly, we have political self-interest or policy myopia, information failure and regulatory capture, disincentive effects, the law of unintended consequences, and finally the cost of enforcement.